Oh, yes, my little pumpkins. Does anybody recognise this paint? Do you recognise those mirror caps? Probably not. What about those wheels? What about that? Look at that. Project Nigel. This is a familiar looking car. It is a midnight blue Rover 45.
Let's go up Blackstone Edge. That's a lot of hats. What you're looking at here is the return of Alfie. 9 months out of the yard, Alfie is back all the way from Scotland to the Blackstone Edgeland. And I am joined by the man who now owns Alfie.
Oh!
Who's Scottish, in case you haven't gathered.
Yeah, subtitles at the bottom.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
I can change them as well as we go along.
Definitely.
So you can say what I want you to say. Alfie looks even better now than I remember. But that might be because of the refurbished wheels and all of the love and attention that this car deserves. And some more. Attracted Aaron to Alfie in the first place was its lovely condition.
Yes.
And what else was it that made you buy this car?
Head gasket failure.
Yeah. I know. I'll buy a car that's bound to go wrong at some point.
Yep.
Aaron's going to open the bonnet of Alfie.
Love-hate relationship. Still to this day.
And there's nothing else going to go wrong with it now, though, is there?
Oh no, absolutely not. Till
There's
something
nothing
goes
left
wrong.
that you haven't changed for
Pretty
this car
much.
to go wrong with.
Pretty much. So, new top hose, new cam sensor, new throttle position sensor, new one of them, can't remember what it is. New airbox, because Alfie's was broke down this end.
It was splitting it.
Yeah. So I managed to get one of these off eBay for 20 quid. New air strap, made by me. New alternator. New fuel filter. Something else he's had done.
Was it the head gasket by any chance?
That's it.
So as per yesterday's video, saying about you shouldn't ever open up the bonnet of your Rover whilst parked at the side of the road, because people will assume the worst and start laughing at you because the dickheads.
So, it's perfect.
So as we can see, the car still looks in absolutely lovely condition. Have you managed to remove any of the minor dents on it anywhere?
No, but it has been welded at this side as I put a screwdriver and it went right through.
Right.
So all this has been welded up.
Looks like quite a nice job. And this is the bit that I did the plate on, which is gone ever so slightly brown in places. Oh, that's going to need attention at some point, isn't it?
That's getting done before Pride Along Bridge.
Ooh. And now, I'm going to give Alfie another drive. What a treat to be back in this car, because I always
waiting for
liked it. And one of the only reasons I ever really decided to get rid of this car was that one that you see in front there, Toby Charles. Toby Charles came along and I decided that that's the car I'm keeping. And look at me, I'm smiling because it's such a fantastic car. I loved every drive I had in this car when I owned it. And then of course Aaron said he wanted to buy it, and just as the MOT had run out, I had to get the new trailing arms done on it at the garage next door, because I definitely wasn't going to be tackling that job myself. Drove it back into the yard and thought, oh dear, am I making a mistake by selling this car? Well, it turns out yes and no, because this car then did suffer the unfortunate head gasket issue that was suspected nearly 2 years previous when I bought it. I bought the car and it all seemed to be fine. I run it, I did, and I've told this story before, 4,000 miles without any kind of an issue. But what I didn't do was take it on any real long journey. The longest journey I took this car on was to go up to Lancaster to pick up a car called Susie Sunshine. That was a 120-mile round trip, and it did it without any fault. So now here I am doing the familiar trip down Blackstone Edge in the old thing, whilst Toby Charles gets driven by Aaron. So I have to say, it was a rather uncomfortable situation for me when I first got the news that the head gasket had failed on this car, because I wasn't expecting it, and all the fluids were checked and everything before it was off on its way to Scotland. And it seems that shock of being driven over 200 miles at 70 miles per hour kind of made it think, hey, hang on, I'm not used to this kind of thing. You're not supposed to drive me like this. You're supposed to pootle around and not really do any of that sort of stuff. The finger wagging happened and all this, and it just basically chucked its dummy out of the pram and said, take the head gasket with you, you flat earther. Yeah, I mean, a proper big tantrum. And it's just fortunate that this car was bought by Aaron and not somebody who just wanted a car to just run around, because it could very easily have ended up just being scrapped if it was in the wrong hands. But Aaron took this car on knowing that it's an old car, it's going to need some stuff doing on it at some point, though he wasn't really expecting that. After that particular tantrum, it did develop a couple of other things as well, and there was, and I do know, a point where he was wondering why he bought it, and he was falling out of love with it. He even said to me, if this doesn't fix it this time, I think I'm going to sell it. And we've stayed in contact all this time, and then he bought another car off of me. As kind of like a mini review, driving the 45. The 45 petrol is a sublime car, because the chassis is so good. The suspension, the independent suspension, it just makes it such a good car to drive. I'm running out of words I haven't used before. Maybe that's a good thing. You know, if you've explained something before and you want to explain it again, and you're trying to think of different words in order to explain it, then maybe your first explanation was good enough. But the point is, this is a properly sorted car now. It did drive absolutely superbly before. There isn't a bush or anything anywhere that needs fixing, and the wheel alignment's all spot on, and it's just, do I wish I had it back? Would I swap, dare I say this, would I swap this car for Toby Charles? Would he want to swap it? Well, that's two questions you're never going to find out the answer to, because for one thing, I'm not even going to ask him, and the other is, I'm not going to give you my answer. Apparently, since having the head gasket done on it, it does feel quite a bit quicker. It's going to be a bit difficult to compare against the 420, because obviously that's got a bit more power to start with and quite a bit more torque. Personally, I think it would be a bit unfair to compare a 1.6 K series to a 2 litre T series. This is the point where I'm just going to let that car who's going slightly over the speed limit take off a bit, so I can actually put my foot down ever so slightly once we get to this here. I'm sure I won't mind me doing this, but we go. That's actually quite good. Let's face it, the 1.6 K series in a Rover 45 is more than enough power for the people that drive them. If you think it's just an old man's car, why would you need any more? And most people, to my experience, do drive like old people anyway. That Peugeot doing 40, it was doing 40 in the 30 limit as well, and that's why I caught it up so easily. It's come a long way with this car, and I mean, it's come a long way to bring it to me. Obviously, it's come a long way to get all of the minor things done to it that weren't really expected, and it just means I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful he's brought it back down here, and it's been such a great experience driving this car again. And I wish I hadn't sold it now. Oh, do I though? I don't know. Aaron suggested to me that maybe with the kind of use it was getting from me, because it wasn't my everyday car, it could have lasted another couple of years before anything really went wrong with it. And it's probably true. It probably is. Although this is just the club model, it still has, because it's an early 45 and a W reg, all the wood bits everywhere, the proper carpet, and just generally the proper Rover feel to it. And the colour, midnight blue, you can't get better. The contrast between this amazing deep colour and the chrome. It is Rover. It's proper Rover. It's cars like this that make me want to have a car. And it's cars like this that I have a car for. That's the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for liking them. Thank you very much for subscribing them. Thank you very much for sharing them. Thank you for being a channel member. And one channel member in particular, the biggest thanks goes to is Aaron. Thank you very, very much for bringing Alfie back down to the yard. That was great. That was really rather great. I'll see you all again soon.
He's had the head gasket done and he's been fine ever since, and has now developed a leak from this hose. Just to be a pain as per usual.
But it is a tiny leak, that, isn't it?
Tiny leak.
Can't see a bit of...
Tiny leak.
Yeah.
So if anybody has a hose,
oh, hose,
this specific hose, do let me know.